Hey, fourth graders, it's Mr. Peters here with your Unit 6, Module 3, Session 1 lesson. So for today's lesson, we're going to be working on your student book pages 236 through 238 with the extra work of your home connections 123 and 124. So I'd like you to go to page 236 to start to follow along with the work that we're going to be doing. So for today, we are switching gears a little bit here from our multiplication and division work to a new strategy of using line plots to track data. And so the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to look at this chart here with the times of the kiddos spent in the swimming pool last year. So it says the school choir is planning their annual swimming pool fundraiser where they sell tickets for a special party at the nearby pool. Last year, Ben kept track of how long people stayed in the pool. He began to calculate each person's total time, and he plotted the first 5 times on the line plot. But he hasn't finished yet. And so the line plot will be on the next page here, which you guys can look at right now too. So the first thing that we need to do is fill in the rest of the values in the last column here. And so what I want to do is I want to work with you quickly and talk about the idea of elapsed time, because what we have here is we have a time that the kids get into the pool and time that they get out. And so what we're looking for is that elapsed time or the amount of time that they took in the pool. And so we're going to look at a few of these here. And so the first one that we're going to do is to fill in our chart here. If we look at Lucas here for elapsed time, this one should be a pretty quick one for us. The reason for it is if you look at it, it's 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. There's no minutes for each one of these. And so for these, it's simple that it is just an hour apart for both of them. And so to fill in our work here, you would simply write 1 hour. Now, if you notice over on the other side here, it looks a little small on my screen, but you can follow along on your student book. They're doing it by fractions here, and they're doing it by fourths and halves for you, and then whole numbers as well. So now if I look at Craig here, we have 209 to 339. So I'm going to show how we can use a blank number line here to show our work. So if we start at 209, and we are trying to figure out how far we need to jump to get to our time. Let me just double check again, 339 up here. One of the things that I talked to my students about this year was the idea of when we're working with elapsed time, we either want to jump to a friendly number or jump by a friendly number. So the first thing that I would notice is that they both end in 9s. Okay, so that's something to pay attention to. So I'm going to try a jump by a friendly number. So I'm going to jump 1 hour to start. And once again, the actual size of your jump doesn't necessarily matter on your drawing as long as you label it correctly. So 1 hour jump would be going to 309. So now the thing I want to notice is that I'm at 309. So I have my 3 for my hour on both of these now. And then I have my 9. So the difference between those is that 0 minutes here in the tens place, and then the 3 over here in the tens place. So that's a jump of 30 more minutes. So if I jump 30 minutes, I'm going to make it from 309 to 339. So if I look at my total jumps on the top, I went for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now the other thing is that on our chart, as I said, we're working with fractions here. So fractions of an hour. So the big thing is we have to understand that there's 60 minutes in an hour. So 30 is half of 6. So we had 1 full hour and 1 half hour. Okay, and if you want with your fractions, you can write them with the diagonal line here, or you can do top to bottom if they have. Either one is fine as long as it works for you. Okay, and then we're going to practice one more together, and then the other ones will be your job to fill out. So we have 310, and we're going to 455. So I'm going to clear out my work here. If you want, you can pause it so you can see that. So we said 3 4:10 to 4:55. And so I'm going to put my time over here. Okay, now, once again, you can do your jumps a few different ways if you want. It's your choice on how you go about doing that. But I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. I know some of you might already recognize how much time it is, and you might add the 2 hours and take away, but we're going to try to keep it as simple as possible. So once again, if I add my hour, now I'm up to 4:10. If you're looking at this, once again, we have the both at the 4 o'clock hour, but then we went from 10 minutes to 55 minutes. And so you might be asking yourself, or already realizing what the difference is. But if you're not quite sure, we can do a little smaller jump. Once again, you want to use as big a jumps as you can without getting confused. So we did 30 more minutes, which 4:10 plus 30 minutes is going to be 4:40. And then you might recognize that it's only 15 more minutes here. So we jumped a total of 1 hour, and then 30 plus 15 minutes is 45 minutes. So we did 1 hour and 45 minutes. That's how long our friend Robert here has been in the pool. So 1 hour, and then if we think about 45 minutes, if you visualize a clock face and you divide it up, 45 minutes would be 3/4 of an hour, because if we did 15, 15, 15, 15 minutes, that would add up to our whole hour. So 45 is 3/15s out of the total 4 that it takes. Okay, so what I'd like for you guys to do is finish filling out this chart. Tomorrow with our work that we're going to do, you'll get a chance to see the chart filled out as well. So that'll be on our next lesson, but I want you to fill it out because you'll need it for this next part. So one of the things that I mentioned that we're going to be working with is the idea of a line plot. Now, a line plot is a way to show data or information that you've collected. And so the nice thing about line plots is that it gives you a visual to easily see the information that you have. And so for this one, when you first look at the line plot, you want to see what it is that they're talking about. And so our line here, as it says here for our label, hours spent in the pool. So you could have 0 hours spent in the pool, or you could spend 3 hours in the pool, anywhere in between those totals. Now, on this side, it says number of children. So what that's telling you is as you go up higher, there's more children there. So for the first 5 kids listed on the chart from the previous page, that was Tristan, Tamara, Ben, George, and Henry. Those kiddos have already been placed on the chart here. And so we have put an X for each kid. And so each X represents 1 kid. So if we did Tristan here, Tristan would have been our first X here on 3/4. Then Tamara would have been the X right here on 1. Ben apparently is a fish, so he spent 2 hours in the pool right there. George, he went 1 1/4. And then Henry did 3/4. So we put another X there to show Henry. So each X represents 1 child. So the first thing that you would need to do is you'd want to finish filling out this chart from the previous page. And once you have done that, then you can fill in the line plot. So one of the first things, though, that they ask you to do, and I want to pause to give you a chance to look at it, is calculate the total amount of time spent in the pool by the first 5 children. And so here's where using a line plot can be kind of helpful for you. So if we're looking at the first 5 kids that were listed on our chart, they're all marked here right now. So personally, what I would do, and you can do this along with me, is looking at this, I would notice that some of the kids spent more than a full hour in the pool and some spent less. So I'm going to look for those full hours. So right here we have a 2, then we have our 1 and our 1. So 2 plus 1 plus 1 equals 4 hours total. And now we want to look at those fractions that we had. So if we go back and we look at our fraction parts, we have 1/4 up here. And then we have 3/4 here. Now with the 1/4, there's only one x, so it's 1/4. And then we have 3/4, and we have two of those. So we need to do plus 3/4 plus 3/4. And what does that equal? So if we look at that again, remember when we add fractions, if we have the same denominator like we do, all you have to do is add the numerators at the top. So the 3 plus the 1 is 4. And then, so that's 4/4, and then our other 3/4. So we went to 7/4, which equals 1 whole, because our 3/4 plus our 1/4 is a whole, and then an extra 3/4. So now, if we add these two together, you're going to get 5 wholes, and then the 3/4. So to answer that question, it would be 5 3/4. Our unit is hours. So one of the things I want to just kind of show you, and I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit here to show you this between the two slides, but as you're putting your marks on your chart here to finish filling it out, one of the things that you would probably want to do is check off the ones that you've already listed. So I'm just going to go back here to this page and show what I would do. So if it was me, I would check off as I added the kids. So the first 5 are given for us. And then we look at Rachel here. Rachel was for a half hour. So I'm going to go over here, put my X for Rachel. Actually, I'm sorry. I went ahead and actually made this easier for myself. I'm going to put the X. Let me erase this. Forgot that I put this up here for me. Put the X here for Rachel. And then come back here and cross Rachel off. Then I'm going to look down at Patty. Patty was in for 1 3/4 hour. So I could cross her off right now. 1 3/4. Go over here and move in my X to 1 3/4. Now for you guys, obviously you need to write your X's. You don't get to click and drag, but you'll be able to do it. The neater that you write them, or the clearer that you write them, it'll make the graph nice and easy, the line plot nice and easy to see. Okay. So you're going to finish doing all that and plotting them out. Now, some of the things that you'll need to answer are some of these new terms that we don't necessarily have, or we haven't necessarily talked about too much. And so with it says, complete the following using line plot. Circle and label the minimum and maximum amount of time spent in the pool. So these, if you just kind of think about it, if you think about those two words, minimum and maximum, the minimum would be the least amount of something. And so you want to look at your line plot after you've finished filling out and see what it was the shortest amount of time that anybody spent in the pool. So they had to have gone in the pool for a little bit at least. What was the least amount of time they spent? So minimum would mean the least amount of time spent in the pool, not the least amount of X's on a mark, but the least amount of time. So that would be somewhere over in this area. Did the person only spend 15 minutes in the pool? Did they only spend 30 minutes in the pool? So that's our minimum. And then our maximum would be the most amount of time spent in the pool. And so maximum, so was that kid in the pool for 2.5 hours? Was the kid in there for the full 3 hours? What was the maximum amount of time that any kid spent in the pool? And then down here, determine and label the range or the difference between the greatest and least value. Okay. Now, once again, this is one of those examples where they give us the definition right after the word. So range simply means difference between the greatest and least value. Okay, so if we look at ours, that's why you have to find the maximum first, and then, or maximum and minimum first, and then you're looking for the difference between those two. Now you're subtracting with fractions again, so it might be easiest just to count how many fourths it is that it's different between the two. Okay, so that's kind of a quick tip for you on that. Once again, if you're trying to find that range or the difference, just count how far apart you are. Then one of the other ones is find the mode. And once again, here's our definition of it. The value that appears the most often. So what this is going to end up being is this is the number that you see the most X's on. Okay, so it's kind of like the most popular amount of time spent in the pool. And so for the data that I have up here right now, there's only one number that has more than 1x. So right now, the mode that I have would be 3/4 because there are 2 x's. There's no other spot here that has more than that. So mode is the one that has the most x's. Okay, so keep that in mind. Maximum is the highest amount of hours spent in the pool. So on your chart, how far you get over here. But mode would be the most marks on it for a line plot. And then finally, the last one is median. And this is one of the things that a line plot can be very helpful with. And so once again, the middle value or median. And so the one thing that I usually would do with my students in the classroom for this one is the idea of finding out who the middle height in our classroom is. I simply can't line everybody up in class in any order and then pick out the middle kid and say, hey, you're the middle height. What we'd want to do is we would want to order the kids from the shortest to the tallest, and then whichever kid is in the middle, that is the median. So same idea here with our time spent in the pool. If you look at our chart that Ben created last year, all the amounts are different right now. So just to pick the middle kid in the list, that doesn't help us. What we need to do is first organize it by the amount of time spent in the pool. So the least amount of time and then the most, and then find that middle number. So once again, here's a tip for you with this one. When you have your X's on there, what you might want to do is lightly kind of put like a little mark through them, or at least put your fingers on it. And so you might do something like 1, and you'd cancel off 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, and work your way to the middle. So right now with my current data, 1 would be the median because that's where my middle number was. If you notice, I have 3 x's above it here and 3 x's below it. This is that middle x. Okay, so that's another example of where using a line plot like this would help us organize our data to make it a little bit easier to follow. And once again, with this, we just want you to give your best shot with this. We'll go over this again tomorrow and actually look at the data a little bit more. And so this is a little bit trickier, a little bit different with our virtual learning, but you can definitely still work on it. So here's just an example of what a line plot could look like. Number of books read this month. So somebody who may have read 1 book, 2 books, 3, 4, all the way up to 9. And then the number of students. So once again, if we looked at this information here, and we were trying to find the minimum, well, the minimum would be 1. Everybody read at least 1 book. So minimum was 1. The maximum number of books read was 9. Then the mode, if I was looking for the mode, I want to see which number had the most X's on it. It was the most popular one. And 2 and 4 would actually be tied with that because there were 6 kids that read 2 books. There were 6 kids that read 4 books. So these were the tied for the mode, the most popular one, number of books read. Once again, the range, our maximum was 9. Our minimum was 1. So there's a range of 8 here. Okay. The difference between the two numbers would be 8. And then to find our our median, I would simply go through and get rid of 1 up here, 1 down here. And it doesn't matter which X you cross off on the column as long as you are crossing off the whole column. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here, 6 over here, 7 over here, 7 marked off here. So you want to just slowly double check your work and make sure that you are doing that. So now we already know that our median is going to have to be 4 because now we tied here on the number 4. Okay, so that's when you're working on that last page and they said find the median, that would be what you'd need. And remember, you can always go back and rewatch the videos if you need a little bit of extra help with it. Your next page here, you're doing the factors and multiples game. And so remember with this one, it would be that 2 players are playing. One player would go first and they would pick the multiple. And so if I went and I picked 27, then my opponent has to circle all the factors of 27. So we'd have 1 and then 27, but that's already circled. Then 3 and 9. So those are all the factors. So when you're answering the questions here, remember that's the way this game is played, is that the first person picks a multiple and then the other person circles all the factors. And then what would happen is they'd flip-flop roles on the next turn. So let's say that this person picks 16 for theirs. Then our blue friend here could pick 2, 8. 2 times 8 is 16. And then even 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so that's what they're doing on this page. This was from one of your previous lessons with playing this game. But there's a little quick review for you. Then finally, for your home connections today, you're going to, once again, make a line plot here. And so with this one, it's your PE teacher has challenged your class to a rope climb. There are 8 blue pieces of tape equally spaced and wrapped around the rope to mark out the distances. The following results represent the goal levels that were reached by the students in your group. So here's our rope as if it's divided into 8 sections. So first thing you're going to want to do is come up with a title, whatever you want to call it. And then since they haven't filled in this part down here, you're going to want to fill in that. Now I'll give you a hint. It's 1/8 over here, 8/8 here. You could probably figure out what needs to go on each one of those to space it equally. Once you have this part done, then start putting your marks on for your different parts on the graph. Okay. Then when you've filled all those out, you can answer these questions pretty quickly. You'll have your X's there and you'll simply look how many students stopped at the goal line of 3/8. So you'll go to 3/8, look how many X's there are, and there's your answer. Okay. Then here it's just a little bit of a review using a ratio table to do the division here. So remember our target number is 216. And so maybe this was teams and then it was players. Sorry. So players, and we'll say that by dividing by 6, that tells us that one team had 6 players. And so you're going to try to build your ratio table up until you get to your 216. And then your answer is whatever that equals up there. And just a quick little review on our fractions and decimals. And that will be your work for the day. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy. We miss you guys. Stay strong, and hopefully we get to see you soon.